Here we are on April 10th, 2010. Just stepping away from the TorontoTruthSeekers.com street action at Dundas Square as usual. Last week, around 5, 6 p.m., I left the street action, put on 50 Cent's Death to My Enemies on repeat, and got in the mood to take on this whole G20 situation, just to give me some energy. And a lot of music does that, so it'll get you in a more confident frame of mind to think of how to tackle the problems around the G20 summit that's happening from June 26th to 27th here in downtown Toronto. So I thought of about 16 ideas in a row, then put the notebook down and relaxed for a bit. And here's 16 ideas, 16 things that we can do as Torontonians before the G20 summit in late June. Number one, tag up, flyer, poster. You know, put stickers, posters, flyers up everywhere, drop them off at local businesses, drop them off in the area. Let people know. It's been the same thing for revolutions and resistance for thousands of years. Epicurus, Greek philosopher, did this 3,000 years ago with his buddies back in Athens when he didn't like what was happening. It was done in 1776 in America for their revolution. And this isn't a revolution per se, but when people want to let other people know about something in any culture at any time, something that they didn't like happening, the government was up to, they put up flyers and posters and they handed things out. So that's the number one most important thing we can do. Number two is videos. Compare what happened in Pittsburgh last year to areas of Toronto where that might happen. So you can show shots of Pittsburgh during the G20, and then you can show areas of Toronto where the same thing might take place to give Torontonians a sense that they're going to want to stop that, because the G20 police state conditions in Pittsburgh were ridiculous, and here with 10,000 security personnel, 1,000 private contractors who might be lawless and might have diplomatic immunity, which means if they shoot us, they could be on a plane out of here, and you know, that whole matter could be forgotten. We need to stop that. If you see how private contractors or private killers or private mercenaries are acting in Iraq and Afghanistan, you can sense that we don't want them in this city at this time. Number three is call the people in Pittsburgh and ask them what happened. Call groups, call organizations, call individuals, call churches, and say, can you let us know what happened during the G20 summit last year in Pittsburgh? Did they really use sound weapon cannons on you? You know, and get some independent confirmation, and then take that information to the people of Toronto to say, yeah, when these guys come to town, these bad things do happen. It's best to try and stop that before it happens. Number four, get some promises from city politicians, bureaucrats, city councilors, MPs, and so on before the G20. If you bug them a week before, they're going to say they're too busy. If you bug them well before, then they might look at the information you have. And so get some promises from them that they'll look into it, or take their reactions, their official responses to the people of Toronto to see why they need to help you make a case if our politicians won't take action on this. But start that communication process early. And get an official comment from the city, the police, the army, the security forces, the people that are responsible for security at this G20 event. Get an official response from them just to show people you did your homework. You're not just a crazy guy on the outside who looks at what crazy people think. You're actually going to talk to these people and say, look, what's your worldview? What's your mindset on this? Do you think that we're all potential terrorists? Do you think protesters are by and large violent? You know, what are your issues here, so we can understand how you're going to approach the situation, and then we're going to share our thoughts on this to say why it doesn't need the response to people's opposition to what the leaders of the G20 countries in the world are up to doesn't need to be this extreme. And if there is any false flag terror style actions like there were in Montebello, Quebec during the SPP protests, we can also get that information to them right away to say, look, we know that it's possible that some elements within your bureaucracies will try and pull stuff. We want to make sure you remember that, so you remember to look for that as well. Number six, will foreign troops be allowed here? Look for legislation that leads up to what could happen at the G20 summit. There's a ton of stuff passed, just like in the States, John Warner Defense Authorization Bill, Patriot Act 1 and 2, PDD 51. There's a bunch of legislation here in Canada. Justice Minister Alan Rock passed our version of the Patriot Act back in 1998. So there's a bunch of stuff on paper that could, and then you might show up at the G20 and go, they can't do this. And then you don't realize there's been a bunch of legislation that they've passed that allows them to. So make a list of that legislation beforehand so that we can see what they say they're allowed to do at the G20, and then we can point out the fact that they shouldn't be. And get our own list of experts in the fields of terror, rights, human rights, public policy, and so on. So you can talk to university professors, you can talk to academics, activists, you can talk to journalists. We can interview people beforehand to get our own list. So if you're on the outside of this, the media is going to be selling you a bunch of experts that are their experts to sell the official reason why we need this kind of security. But if we have our own list of experts, then we can, of course, match them toe-to-toe for public opinion. Number 8, hit up the area first. You know, show them that you did some homework there first. Go to the local businesses in the area, by Front and Spadina, by Metro Convention Center, and let them know, by the Sky Dome, and let them know that you know, you're working on their behalf. You don't want that whole area to be under horrible police state conditions with 10,000 security troops. I mean, Bilderberg showed up in Ottawa. They went to a hotel outside of town. 130 of the most powerful people in the world, as the Ottawa Citizen and other mainstream Canadian newspapers reported. So why is it when these guys come here, they've got to shut down half the city? You can also contact the city councillors in their area. I talked to a CP24 reporter outside Toronto City Hall and asked him, why has the free speech statue been ripped up? And he says, I don't know, but you should talk to your local, the city councillor for this area. So that got me thinking, with respect to the G20, anybody in Toronto can contact the city councillor for that area and then go to the people of that area and say, hey, we already talked to your councillor. This is what they said. This is why you need to talk to them as well. Number 9, tie into the traditional community activist struggles. So there's a bunch of activist groups out there working on issues in this city. If they work on defending this city from the G20 police state conditions, I don't even like the word police state, because again, that's like, it just furthers division between us and the police. So, you know, that's probably, it's probably some language we should clean out, but everybody understands it, so you use it anyway. But the Northcom militarized conditions here during the G20, you know, you can say to the activists, look, if you work on behalf of the people in this city to defend this city from what's going to happen at the G20 based on what happened in Pittsburgh last year, then it's possible this city and people in this city will show some more empathy for your causes. So the G20 can be an issue that all activist groups, or as many as possible, take on in this city on behalf of this entire city in order to get the favor from this city later on. Number 10, the media. You know, take packages to the media. You know, don't write them as individuals and don't write them with random paranoia, but take packages to them as groups and say, can you look into these issues? Can you do this research for us? We've already had a great article in the Globe and Mail recently talking about all the security conditions called Small Army to Protect Toronto during G20 Summit. If you read into the article, the headline might have been written by the editor, because the article revealed that it was a small army to protect the G20 Summit from Toronto. So you can read that in there. But this article was brilliant, done as well as any InfoWars article, because it linked to the official MERX, M-E-R-X, ironic name, the official MERX Government of Canada procurement website. And so you'll have journalists doing their best to let us know this is real. The government is really tendering to bring in 1,000 private contractors to protect these diplomats at the G20. And when the media is working that hard, if we work with them, then we'll allow them to do even more work on this issue and tell as many people as possible. So take packages to the media. Number 11 is...